So now let's dive into what we're actually here to discuss, which is the draft orders and request to quote elements of Zoey's capabilities. It's important to note that as we review this with you, we're going to be also showing this in the context of a full store. So there's going to be other aspects of Zoey's features that can be leveraged to work together with this to make a stronger presentation for your particular business. Zoey's tools are always designed in mind with the ability to be able to um, customize them to a certain level to be able to make sure that it focuses on what you need your business to be able to leverage. So if you haven't seen a Zoey store before, this is an example of one of the themes that we have available. It's called the Santee theme. Zoey has a number of pre-built themes focused on B2B right out of the box. And so the tools that you're going to see are designed to integrate right into these themes. Right now, you'll see nothing that sort of indicates anything about quotes other than a My Quotes capability. That's because in this case, we're using access restrictions to be able to only show it to certain customers. So we'll be logged in momentarily as a certain customer, so you can see how Quotes works. But note that Quotes doesn't have to be visible to everyone. That's the first thing I wanted to mention. Some merchants don't want to give away their pricing because it's proprietary information. It may tip off something to a competitor, or you may have pricing that's customized for each customer. So it may help to have Quotes as only a logged out facing feature and used as a customer acquisition tool where they can come and fill out information or take a look at your catalog and request pricing, which you can then use to woo them in as a new customer. In this case, we've got it set up for one customer group. Zoey allows you to set up multiple customer groups, and you can assign access to each of those groups. So let's get signed in real quickly, and that's how we're going to get started here. And actually, since I pre-logged in, you'll see it jumps me right into the account dashboard. You can see that among the things that are available here is My Quotes. We'll show how to build a quote momentarily, but what this looks like in terms of the site is a couple of things. So when you're surfing different pages of the site, you'll start to see elements that are woven in that allow for the ability to put things into your quote, just like you would your cart. So you can see here, here's a sample category. Now, a moment ago, you'll see that I did not have a quote icon up here. I had just the shopping cart. Now I have the ability to see a quote in progress. So for one format, quotes can be built similar to a shopping cart. You can add items individually, and you can go through them one by one and select what you want to add to your quote. Now, for certain B2B buyers, this is inefficient. They know what SKUs they're looking for, and they want to be able to enter it quickly. So we also have the ability to do an advanced quick order, which is one of our other capabilities. And with advanced quick order, you can enter a lot of SKUs at one time. So we'll show you that in a little bit, but let's just start by working with the basic quote features, and you'll be able to see how this works in practice. So here is a sample category page with different products. You'll see that some items are not available. In this case, this one is not. So obviously, you can show out of stock items as well as in stock items to be able to have your full catalog on display. Obviously, it'll keep going. We have 100 sample products in this case, but I'm going to go ahead and add a few items to my quote right now. I'll add, let's say, 5 of this particular product here. You'll see that the quote will automatically update in the site cart area, similar to if you were adding it to the cart to show you what's in your quote. Let's say we want to do 10 more of this one here. You'll see now we have 15 in the quote. So let's review the quote and see where we are at this point. So right here, you'll see the different items that are available, and you'll see that it's not very much information required to be able to submit a quote request. So in this particular situation, if there's a scenario where you just want to get the information quickly, you can just have them enter a name for this particular quote so they can also find it, and a phone number and a first and last name, and they can submit the quote to you. Email address is obviously captured for guests because that's sort of the unique identifier. So since I'm logged in, it's not asking for that piece of information, but if I were logged out, it would. But otherwise, it can be designed to be very simple. However, you may have tax and shipping scenarios that also want to get quoted, so you can also enter other information, as you can see here, to enter the shipping address and the billing address as well. So more information can be provided to get a more complete quote. For simplicity, I'm just going to go ahead and focus on a couple of fields. I'm going to call this one live demo quote, so we know how to find it later. And I'm going to put a phone number of 123-456-7890, just so that way we have a 10-digit phone number in this particular case. And we're going to go ahead and submit that quote. So once that quote is submitted, the customer can then see the quote as part of their account dashboard. So they can see any pending quotes that they have. They can also see if there's been any updates made to those quotes, which allows for the ability to know when they're ready to see what their pricing is. So in this case, we have our 15 items here. You can also see there's a quick add item by SKU. So this is related to our quick order capability where you can search a SKU and add it to the quote quickly. So since you can see we have this pattern here where I can just enter a number at the end, let me search for simple product 10. I'll add it to my quote right now. It'll note that I am making a change to the quote because if it's already been sent back to me for review, that will start the process over. I have 1 in there. Let's say I want to make it now 10 because I want 10 of these. We'll update that. And my quote will now be updated again. So now I see I have 5 of that first product, 10 of the second, and now 10 of this new one that I've just added. So all of that is part of the ability for a customer to build a quote. And also keep in mind, as a guest, a salesperson can use this as well. So if your salesperson is inside a store and looking to pull together information on a tablet very quickly, they can just go right to the site, start building a quote, and enter the customer's email address. So all of that is definitely possible. What that looks like on the admin side is there's going to be a quotes page that we've added. So we've added a full quotes menu to the left side if you're familiar with the Zoey interface, or if you're not, this is where it lives. And you can see all the different quotes that are in here. You can see I did an earlier test quote, and now here's my new one. And you can see there's a change request because I made that change in the middle of everything. As a merchant, I can now go in here and take a look at what's been put into the order. Note that there's some settings in here, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that you can control how long a quote is active. You can allow for certain things to be edited or not. So if you need to lock down a quote for certain reasons or restrict information because it's based on how you're determining the quote, you can certainly do that here. Or you can leave it open, and obviously it has to be reviewed by you before a quote can be completed because that's how they get their pricing and confirmation of what they're getting. So in this case, you can see here my 3 products that I had requested, 5, 10, and 10. You can see here 150. Let's say that I offer a special when you buy 10, and maybe now we drop it down to $145 for a purchase of 10, and let's do that for this one as well here. You'll see a blue bar appears at the top, just reminding you that you do need to save the quote to recalculate the totals. And notice how the totals are kind of blanked out right now. You'll also see, since we didn't enter any billing or shipping information at the moment, there's no way for me to work with that to calculate that. But let's just go ahead and save this for now. And you'll see now that the quote has been saved successfully, and we now have new totals calculated down here. You'll see because I lowered the price to 145, we're now seeing 10 is 1450. We're adding a 0, multiplied by 10. And so that's exactly what a customer would see when you send it back to them. You'll see that the statuses here allow you the ability to update the quote to be able to let a customer know that a quote is available for review and acceptance. You also see that you can put it on hold if there's any issues. You have the ability to expire a quote or cancel a quote. These are obviously able to help you understand where your quotes are in the process of being managed and give you the ability to quickly filter when you're looking at the quote list where everything happens to live. You also have the ability to mark it converted to order. We don't automatically shut down a quote when it's been converted to an order because sometimes a merchant will reuse a quote to reorder or clone it. So it's up to you to decide if you want to do that or just expire the quote depending on your business logic and rules. Now let's look at the settings that I said we'd come back to. You'll see that there's the ability to decide whether a quote will expire or not and how long. You can set defaults for this, of course, and that will let you have it be a standard practice and a sort of a business logic rule that you can set. Or you can edit a particular quote if you need to give a customer more time or less time, as the case may be. You can set a reminder, so you can basically contact the customer and let them know that that the quote is still waiting for them. Obviously, when you send a quote back to the customer, they will get an email as well, but the reminder is just to keep things moving. And then again, you can see if a customer can add comments, can edit the items, addresses, and so forth. Can they convert to order multiple times? So as I mentioned, some merchants may allow them to reuse that quote and order multiple times. And can they change the quote name so that way they can distinctly identify it. So all of this is under your control, and depending on what your rules require or what your business process is planned to be, you can decide how that works. And this you can see is set for one individual order. If I go to settings, you'll see a similar amount of options with some additional things to cover this on a more generic basis. You'll also see in the broader quotes, you could also have the ability to decide where the add to quote button is shown. So again, I mentioned that we're showing it only to one customer group for this store's case. You can also hide pricing when add to quote is enabled. So for instance, if you have a public site that doesn't show pricing, you can have add to quote displayed in the place of the price when you turn off pricing for that particular segment. You can set, that's why we have a not logged in as well. And you can also do it for certain customer groups. You can hide the quote shopping cart icon if it's not relevant to certain groups. And see there's those global permissions that I was talking about before. And you can also see there's other things like, do you have to be logged in to create a quote? What fields are required to be captured? Some of you may require tax information depending on what you're selling. So these types of settings are able to be enabled or disabled based on your specific business needs. And then you can also choose the status names and what one it goes to when something happens. So obviously, you can see here you can choose to hide prices for a new quote. So if you haven't reviewed it yet, it won't show pricing. That's exactly what you saw in here because I had not reviewed it yet. So there's no pricing shown to the customer until the review. It's a good visual clue. So we have built that in for that reason. And again, you can see default expiration is 30 days, which we saw in the quote that I just pulled up in the admin, and a 14-day reminder. So all of these are controllable and manageable by you. And then you can even set a prefix for your quotes and have what the quote IDs are going to be. You might want to have them numbered separately from your orders in a very clear way, so that way you can tell them apart. And so you can see here we used 2018, 2001 as our first ID and went from there. And we used a prefix for the quote. And then you can see here when quotes come in, you can send copies to your staff. So you have the ability to alert them when a quote comes in for review. You can choose what email information and templating you want to use for all of that as well. So Zoey has, for those of you who aren't familiar, a full email templating capability. You can build templates for each of your standard emails. You can decide which template is used for which email, which allows for customization of the design. So that gives you a bit of branding control over the emails that go out. Similarly, for PDFs, when they're downloadable, you can generate designed PDFs as well. So as you can see, the remainder of the settings is just around what email is fired and which template is used. So basically, that's one way you can do quotes. The other way you can do quotes is through something called Advanced Quick Order. So before we show you that, let me just explain that for those of you who aren't familiar. Advanced Quick Order is designed to allow for the ability to enter SKUs if you're already familiar with them and what you're looking for without having the need to go to each product page one by one. So if you are selling in bulk and you have customers who are familiar with your SKUs and they're just looking to set up an order very quickly, the purpose of Advanced Quick Order is to allow for a simple way to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do right now is pull up our Advanced Quick Order page. So you can see here that we actually have an Advanced Quick Order form pre-populated with a number of SKUs that are in our catalog. This is one thing you can do with Advanced Quick Orders. You can have a pre-populated form with your most common SKUs already put into place. This is great if you have standard orders that are ordered often by certain customers. You also might have sort of suggested starting points or suggested starting packages that you sell. This is another way that you can implement that. And as you can see here, along with the Add to Cart button, we have the Add to Quote. So in this case, instead of going to all of these product pages one by one and entering this information, you're now able to put all of these into a quote at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then you'll see that the items have been added. We can go then to review the quote, and this will look exactly like you saw before, only with a lot more products that are displayed and put into the quote. So basically, we know that there are different ways that customers shop. We also know that there are different ways that businesses set up their catalog. We have some businesses that only use Advanced Quick Order because their customers are always ordering the same things. We have other merchants that need to display their catalog and have it be searchable and navigable because they're trying to use their product catalog either for SEO purposes or to show the breadth of what they sell. So we don't want to presume that you're going to have customers that do it one way or the other. So Quote is designed to be robust and used in a number of different ways. So as you can see, we have obviously different ways that customers can shop. We even have a third way for displaying products that launched recently along with quotes, which is our table review of the category page. So you saw before we had a category with, you know, the standard B2C format with a bunch of pictures and the basic information under it. But a lot of B2B sites tend to prefer to condense this information because they just have so much to show. So a table view, it looks something like this, where you see all of the products in a scannable format. You can can enter the quantity of multiple products at the same time, and then you can add them to your cart or your quote at the same time. So again, if I put in some quantities and then I add all to the quote, you can see I've got 3 items selected with a total quantity of 25. And so if I hit add all to quote, then you get the ability to update your quote accordingly. So now if you look, I have 125 items showing in the icon on the quote. So my quote has been updated accordingly. So if I refresh now my quote, sorry, I apologize. We got to get back to the one. There we go. We're going to refresh now and take a look. We should have an updated quote now with a few more items in here. And you can see a total of 125. So that gives you a general overview of what Quote has to offer. One thing to keep in mind about quotes is that it can also be used in a number of ways when it comes to draft orders. Draft orders are best envisioned as orders that may be changing regularly before a customer is ready to complete the order. What a lot of merchants have historically done is put a temporary authorization, then they have to edit orders, reauthorize, update, go up and down with the credit card information. It can be a mess and it can be challenging for both parties because of the number of steps that are required. But with a draft order, because it may not be finalized yet, it gives the merchant an understanding of what to expect for that order, and it gives the customer a chance to potentially adjust the order before it's finalized and sent in. It's also great for salespeople. Salespeople may not be able to get in person with a customer, and they may work with a customer over the phone, talk to them about what they need, and then they can put together the order with pricing, send it over, and ask them to approve the quote, and then that would get the purchase done that much faster. So we do understand that salespeople definitely need to use the e-commerce site as well. So one of the other things that's worth mentioning is that our sales quote front end, which is the part that we've been showing sort of in the Santee theme, is accessible via tablet and optimized for tablet as well. So if you have salespeople in the stores with a tablet, they can quickly create a quote as a guest, get that saved into your system, so that way they can get back to the merchant with a final quote to order. So it's also about salesperson workflow and optimization as well, being able to do that. Let's take a quick look one more time at the admin, and we'll take a look at the quotes that we have, and we can show what happens when we push it back to a customer for purchase. So you can see here we have this open one that we talked about before. I did save the pricing changes, but I did not actually send it back to the customer for review. So let's say that I'm happy with this. I can tell them that a quote is available. I could send them an email if I want. And then you can see the basic customer information, so we know where it's going to go. You can also add a comment if you'd like, which can be visible to the customer. So let's go ahead and say, here's your quote. We hope you will make this purchase and join our family of customers. We'll add the comment, and then we'll save the quote. So now the quote will be available for review. So if I go back now to my quotes in my account, I'll see that a quote is now in the quote available status, and you'll see there's now pricing showing. So the pricing, because we have it disabled until the quote is available, I'm able to now see. I can accept the quote at this point if I'm happy with it, or I can make more changes and request a review, and that's exactly what you saw when I added another SKU. So when you accept the quote, it takes them to a streamlined workflow to be able to check out, and then they're able to complete their order very quickly. If shipping and billing and address information has already been filled out, then it'll obviously speed it up even further. You'll also see that there's the ability for, as I said, the customer to add a comment. So if there's anything they need a merchant to know as part of the quote, they're able to do so, or communicate back and forth with the merchant around this quote. So that's the quote feature in a nutshell. Keep in mind that quotes is one part of the larger whole that Zoey offers. We offer features that are designed to help decide who can see this information through access restrictions and customer groups. So you're able to customize your store and what your store looks like for each individual merchant, individual customer as a merchant. So if you have certain customers that get different pricing than others, or only certain customers that can do quotes, all of that is controllable within the Zoey admin. You also have the ability to do, as we saw, advanced quick order, which allows you to quickly accept orders through SKU uploads. either through a CSV copy and paste or entering the SKUs by hand. But instead of going to each product, it speeds that up quickly. And there's also our visual design editor, which allows you to decide how this look and feel matches your branding. As I said, we give you themes like Santi to work with to get started, and then you have a bunch of different ways to customize it through easy-to-use tools. So some of you I know who are on this webinar have been Zoey customers already, and some of you may not be, so we don't want to presume that everybody knows the same thing, so hence a quick overview there. But we do have some questions that have been coming in during the presentation. I want to take a quick look at those right now and see what's available. So for instance, one of the questions that we have in here is relating to whether you can show other information, request other fields. So one of the things that we do have in Zoey is the ability to enable or disable additional fields, which is one of the things that I showed during the admin. We are in the process of also establishing some additional order fields, which allow us to be able to, similar to product attributes, establish some order attributes that can be required, such as a company name. I'm going to have my team verify during this call and just get back to me if we have a specific company name field already available or possible with quotes, but if it's not, it will be available very soon as part of that work that we're doing. So the next question that we have is, what is the advantage to getting a quote as a customer? They're not going to be necessarily doing pricing changes upon receiving a quote, so they don't understand who would be using this. So this is definitely for merchants that have pricing scenarios that aren't as clear, or if their pricing is not publicly advertised. So to give you an example, some businesses, when they're selling in volume, they give pricing breaks based on the size of the order or the size over time of the customer spend. So just having pricing on the front end, if you're attracting new customers, is not necessarily going to be advantageous, because that may not be what they qualify for. They may actually, if they're going to be buying a big order right out of the gate, qualify for something better. And so that would be an obvious reason why quotes would be helpful, because you can have them tell you what they're planning on ordering, and then you can use that to understand what they would qualify for. This is much more of a B2B scenario than a B2C scenario. Many times B2C businesses, their pricing is set, and they tend to use that to bring in their customers by showing that publicly. But B2B businesses, many times the pricing can be proprietary or shift based on what's being ordered or how much they order over time. So hence why quotes can be very valuable for that particular elements of it. And then they had a follow-up question that they asked after that, which is, could it be about items that do not have pricing information? There may be a scenario where you're taking pre-orders, and based on the number of pre-orders, you're able to determine a price. So quotes could be used for that scenario to let people put in those requests in advance, and then you can determine what the pricing will be for that as well. So that could certainly be one option. And then another question that came in, if you're doing an advanced quick order that is pre-set up, can you make items clickable in case they would like to look over details of set item? So what I've seen some merchants do with that is they can set up catalog category pages that they sort of don't put in the navigation, but then they use that for the merchandising aspect of it, and then they put the advanced quick order into that page or a link to that page. So if you want a more catalog sort of surfable version, you could put those into a category page and then have a sort of a paired advanced quick order built out to allow for that to happen. So that's just about creative merchandising at that point and using those elements to your advantage. We have a question not about quotes, but about sort of integrations. Do we have an easy and ready to use integration with Sage 300? So for that answer, I'll just sort of answer broadly, and then I can reach out specifically offline about this question. But Zoey has integrations with hundreds of different other systems. Some are built in as apps that are built by the companies and directly connected into Zoey. Others are done through third parties that offer connections to multiple systems. So many times we have a solution. It's just a question of who we would recommend for that solution. But we do connect with a lot of the different accounting packages, a lot of the different email service providers, a lot of the different CRMs, ERPs, and from smaller ones to large ones, we connect with a lot of marketing solutions that track your advertising performance when you send people to your site and track your conversions and so forth. So all of that is possible to be linked into Zoey. So to this specific question, I'll reach out offline after the presentation about your specific question, but I will just answer broadly and say that we do have a lot of integrations. And you can go to zoey.com/apps to see our directory of apps, which we're updating regularly with new integrations. I'll give you a couple more minutes around questions. Oh, it looks like we have another question that came in. Can a quote be required per item? So I presume that the question, and feel free to message me back if this is not exactly what you're asking, is can you assign some items to be quotable and some items not? That's a good question. I am not 100% sure if we have a toggle on any individual product level. I believe that there may be the opportunity if the pricing is disabled to show a quote button. So if that setting relates to that, then that might possibly be it. But I have not tested that scenario, so we can definitely double check on that for you and get an answer back out to you. As you saw, we have some global settings, but certain product settings may not be there yet. But we're also, as I should note, this launched in the last 60 days, and we're continuing to iterate based on the suggestions and feedback. So if we don't have it, it'll definitely be something that the team will look at as a possible future enhancement as well. So I'll give you a couple more minutes in case any other questions pop into your heads as you're listening. For those of you who may be watching this back on playback via recording, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at josh@zoey.com. And the same goes for everybody watching today. You might think of questions after the presentation. We're happy to get you answers to that. And we may publish some, like a follow-up page as well with any other questions that come up so we can share it with everybody. But we really do appreciate you participating in this. So let us know if you have any other questions. And while we're waiting to see if there are any others, just quickly remind you that we want to know what your feedback on our webinars are. We're going to be doing more of these as we go, talking about some of our features and some use cases for them. We'd love to hear what topics you'd love to learn more about, so definitely email me at josh@zoey.com as well if you have any of those. And don't forget that we've done about 20 webinars at this point with other information that you could take advantage of. The playbacks are all available at that zoey.com/webinars URL. In some cases, we even have the slides downloadable for you also. So that said, if we don't have any more questions, I'm just going to check and see if we were able to get an answer on that. It doesn't look like we did get anything back in time. Oh, we did get a question, though. Will the quote show live shipping rates, and can you override the shipping charges on the quote? So yes, so that's something I didn't demonstrate specifically on this, but if you put in a shipping address, then it will do the standard shipping calculations based on the information that's available for the product. So if you have your product set up, for instance, with weights, and it's calculating based on that, it'll do the live shipping rates by default. And then if, because the customer is qualifying for something different, maybe they ordered enough and your site's set up by default to show shipping rates based on weight, but you might be doing a different type of shipping because of the size of the order, it can be modified during the quote review stage to allow you to set the pricing and the shipping for that particular order. So all of that can be managed both on the customer side to some degree based on what they input, and also by the merchant when they review the quote. So that definitely will allow you to do that. So we do have an answer that came back. There is no toggle for quotes per product at this time. So just as a note, company name can be is a field that can be required already, as well as tax ID, address, name, phone. So you could require an address if you wanted to speed up the process and be able to do that, and that would also help with the shipping as well. And then specifically for quotes, if you want to modify the shipping rates that are calculated, you can enter a custom shipping rate as an override to what's calculated by default by the store. So as you can see, quotes is definitely a very pliable and very customizable feature and can be used in a lot of different ways to help your business. It's currently part of our advanced plan, which is $8.99 a month. There is a 15% discount if you sign up annually with Zoey and prepay for the year. But basically, it comes with that, the table rates and additional features that are rolling out as we go. We also are rolling out, for those of you who are customers and are listening in right now, some new features relating to things like blog search and the ability to modify your product grid and your customer grid. And all these changes are coming out regularly. So if you're not getting those updates, be sure to check out our blog and subscribe. We post regularly about new updates and releases that are coming out, and the team has been incredibly busy this year. This might be our most productive year yet in terms of the number of features and capabilities that we're adding to the platform. So with that having been said, if there's no further questions, keep it nice and tight to 30 minutes today. We really appreciate your time and for you joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another webinar.